Hey everyone, Saul from Three Kingdoms Games here, coming to you today with some more Throne of Eldraine Spoilers. So this is part 2 of our video series. If you haven't seen part 1, it's linked in the description below, as well as the mechanics video for Throne of Eldraine will also be linked in the description below. Anyways, on with the spoilers. So we have Fave Wishes. It's a 2 CMC 1/4. It's an adventure card, so it does have a sorcery half. The sorcery half is 4 CMC. You may choose a non-creature card you control from outside, or you own from outside the game. So it's a wish card, and add it to your hand. Now, in Commander, most people don't like wish boards. In Limited, your wish board is only what's not in your deck, which in most circumstances in Limited, you're going to have everything in your deck that you want, and you can sideboard in between games anyways, so most things that are in your sideboard you'll grab later. In 60 card constructed, I don't see where this is going to make a huge impact. Maybe in Modern, if you're trying to do like a Michelson Flatus thing with Karn, but Karn can go get it himself, so I don't see how much play that side's going to see. But I do like seeing wish mechanics being kept in Standard, because this next rotation will be taking the next one, the last one out, which was Mastermind's Acquisition. And then the creature half is a 1/4 flyer for 2 mana, discard 2 cards, return it to your hand. So I guess you can try to persistently wish. I don't think this card's that great. It's probably not going to see a lot of play in any formats, unfortunately. 2 for a 1/4 flyer, though, not bad, I guess, for Limited, just for the creature half. Next up, we have Clackbridge Troll. It's a 5 CMC 8/8 trample haste. When Clackbridge Troll enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 3/0/1 white goat creature tokens. At the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, you tap Clackbridge Troll, you gain 3 life, and you draw a card. This is actually really, really strong, because usually mechanics where they have to sack a creature and you might get a +1 counter or something, you're still tapping your creature. The fact that this is giving you life and drawing you a card, it's giving you tempo advantage on top of the fact that you now have this big threat. Now, some of my regulars and I have joked about playing this in a deck with like Plague Engineer and calling Goat, so you kill off all the tokens as soon as they come in, or anything like that with Engineered Plague, just as like a weird, goofy way to try to keep your troll upright. Overall, though, I think this is a really good card. Yes, it's mostly a Commander card, which I know to some people is a cop-out, because Commander used to be the format that you'd use like binder rares in, but it has changed significantly in that time. Sorry, something in my eye. But overall, really good card. I think that's fantastic. And yeah, I'm definitely hyped to play with this card quite a bit. Next up, we have Fervent Champion. It's a 1 CMC 1/1. Okay, I love 1/1s that are in red because, well, I'm an aggro player, and I'll admit that. I know that. It has First Strike and Haste. So it's 1 for a 1/1 with First Strike and Haste. I already like this card a lot. Whenever Fervent Champion attacks another target attacking knight you control, gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Equip abilities you activate that target Fervent Knight costs 3 less to activate. That is really, really strong, actually. If you do it in the right Voltron kind of style deck or something to that effect, I like this card a lot. The fact that it also buffs another knight. Now, it is a 1/1. People are going to gun for it as soon as it comes down, because it's really easy to kill a 1/1. Let's be real. But overall, really solid card. I think this is very strong. And onward to green, you have the Gilded Goose. So it's a 1 CMC 0/2 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you get a food token. So more food creation. I was talking about it in the last video that I need to see a lot more food creation in order for me to think food as even an alternate resource similar to energy would work. You can pay to tap it and create a food token, or tap it, add a food token, sacrifice a food token, and add a mana of any color. Okay, so it's a weird mana dork, or potentially, again, a resource acceleration for a food token strategy deck. I haven't seen enough food token stuff in order to actually think that's a viable strategy. But, you know what, 1 for a 0/2 that I can make a color out of, or worst case, I can create food tokens later. Not the worst card, not the best card, but definitely I could see some play with it. Again, probably mostly commander, unfortunately. Next up, we have acclaimed contender. This one has a paragraph attached to it. I am sorry in advance. It is 3 for a 3/3 human knight. When acclaimed contender enters the battlefield, if you control another knight, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a knight aura, equipment, or a legendary artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I like this a lot, actually, because it lets you dig for potential help for your deck. My only real issue with it is effects like this at the 3 slot can get really iffy, and you have to build your deck really hard to make sure you're hitting the right stuff. Now, 3 for a 3/3 that will let you fish something out of your deck isn't bad, but effectively it's a bear once it's on the battlefield, and if you whiff, this thing is going to hurt because you just wasted 3 mana on a vanilla 3/3. So I'm a little underwhelmed by that. I think some people are referring to it as the better Militia Bugler. I don't know how I feel about that, but then again, I wasn't a big fan of Militia Bugler to begin with. So overall, kind of meh on this card. Maybe in a Mardu Knight strategy or a Knight strategy in general, just so you can keep your hand full with more bodies and get more accessories to play with your Knights. But yeah, we'll see how it does. I don't know how much constructed play it will see, but you never know. I could be very wrong. Next up, we have Folio of Fancies. So it's a 2 CMC artifact. Players have no max hand size. XX tap. Each player draws X cards. 3 mana tap. Each opponent puts a number of cards equal to the number of cards in their hand from the top of their library into their graveyard. Okay, this is really cool. So mill strategies are back. And in limited, this is actually going to be a really strong mill card because XX, yeah, it's not the craziest thing, but they could make you draw 3-4 cards. If they have any way of untapping it and tapping it again, they can then use it twice in the same turn, mill you faster. In Commander, definitely there are ways to do both, and this will be a huge card. This also makes mill in Standard more viable again. It's probably going to end up being in the Dimir shell would be my guess if you do it, because Dimir mill plus this has a lot of hand disruption effects on top of this. So all the removal they need, destabilizing your board, counterspelling you, and they can then keep milling you with this. Pretty strong. I like this idea. Now, the next card, I have seen this already. It's probably my favorite adventure card I've seen spoiled thus far, and that is Murderous Knight. It's a 3 CMC, 2/3. The adventure side of it is Swift End. It's effectively a instant speed, Hero's Downfall. So destroy target creature or planeswalker, and you lose 2 life. The creature side of it, so it's a 3 CMC, so both sides are the same mana. Lifelink. Whenever Murderous Rider dies, you put it at the bottom of its owner's library. Now, I like this card a lot because I might not have made it clear in the mechanics video, but adventures are creatures at all times except for when they're on the stack, which means opponents can duress you and they can't get this out of your hand because it's a creature at that moment. Now, that's huge right there because having a removal spell that they can't remove preemptively is really strong. And it's a 2/3 with lifelink for 3, which isn't bad. It's kind of on curve. But the fact that it has Hero's Downfall stapled onto it, I like that a lot. This will probably mostly see play for the adventure side, though. Now, next up we have Fires of Invention. It's a 4 CMC. You may cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spell cards each turn. Okay, this better have a really strong upside for that downside. You may cast spells with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying their mana cost. That's actually really, really strong. I could see playing that in a lot of commander decks because it lets you get out, if you are in some kind of Gruul strategy where you can, or Jund strategy, or anything pretty much with green and red, where you can ramp hard enough and have all the lands that you need, you suddenly drop this out and just start dropping huge bombs. because it's not non-creature spells. It's just any creature spells with converted mana cost equal to or less than the number, or any spells with converted mana cost equal to or less than the number of cards in your hand. This is a huge card. I like this a lot. I don't know how much 60 card constructed play we'll see, but definitely commander constructed play, tons. I'm probably going to find room for this in my Duretti control stacks kind of deck, because being able to drop free stacks spells is huge. And yeah, overall, I think this is a solid card, and the fact that it's an enchantment and persistent, I'm willing to take that drawback of only playing stuff during my turn, because generally speaking, in the decks I just mentioned before, so like Gruul Stompy kind of strategy or things like that, I'm mostly only playing during my turn anyways. So cool, can't play more than 2 spells a turn, but I get to start playing everything for free. That's pretty huge. And next up, another card I did see before, and I love the flavor on this card, is Lovestruck Beast. Clearly Beauty and the Beast, but they couldn't call it that, so whatever. It is 3 for a 5/5. It's an adventure card. The sorcery half of it, which is Heart's Desire, you create a 1/1 human creature token. On the other side, Lovestruck Beast can't attack unless you control a 1/1 creature. Now, it says specifically it can't attack. It can still block. So 3 for a 5/5 blocker is not bad to begin with. It will stop some of the nonsense of people attacking you. But the fact that you have to control 1/1s definitely gives green something for the early game mana dorks and things like that that you generally have to run anyways in green. So this will get out really quickly, potentially turn 2 in the right deck, and turn 3 this can start swinging in. And easily enough to give it trample in green. So overall, I think this is a very solid card for green Stompy. It's also not a legendary creature, so you can have 4 of these out. I think it's a really good card. Well-designed card, fits the flavor, everything. Great job on the design on that card. Now, next up we have Prince Charming. Of course, fairy tale theme, we have to have a Prince Charming. I wish it was more like the Prince Charming from Fables. For those of you who read Fables or comic books out there, you know what I mean by Prince Charming. Pretty much the end of the punchline is that Prince Charming that's in every story, it's the same Prince Charming. He's a con man. This card kind of feels that way to me. So it's 2 for a 2/2 human noble. When it enters the battlefield, you get to choose one of the effects. You scry 2, you gain 3 life, or you exile another target creature card you own, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of your next upkeep. So you get to blink something and get another ETB, scry 2, or gain 3 life for 2 mana for a 2/2. Solid overall card. Definitely going to fit into anything with like a control-ish strategy. And even not control strategy, being able to scry 2 in an aggro deck's huge, because it means you can get lands out of your way that otherwise might gum up your hand and slow down just the progression you have. So overall, I think this card's great. Definitely worth playing, and I think we will see constructive play with this in 60 card. Next up we have Midnight Clock. It is a 3 CMC. Of course, Midnight Clock has to be in there. 3 CMC, blue artifact. It taps for 1 blue mana, so overcosted mana rock so far. I hope it has better effects. 3 mana, so 2 colorless and a blue. Put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. At the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. Okay. When Midnight Clock... when the 12th hour counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and your graveyard into your library, and then draw 7 new cards, exile Midnight Clock. So it's a really expensive reset for you. Even with all the proliferate in the world, 3 mana, trying to like get this going, I'd rather just run any of the other blue shuffle my hand in and graveyard effects. This card is kind of trash. Sorry for all those people out there who like it. I'm sure there's other uses. The fact that it's a mana rock as well, kind of cool. You can, slow roll to it, but still overall, I'm not, a huge fan of it. Okay, next card. I have seen this one before. I have my own thoughts I'm going to share on this one in a second, but Oathsworn Knight. It is a black human knight. It is 3 mana for a 0/0. When it enters the battlefield, it comes in with 4 +1/+1 counters. He has to attack each turn if able. And whenever he is dealt damage, prevent all that damage and remove a +1 counter from it. Now, Oathsworn Knight, fun card. It is clearly a Monty Python reference for the Black Knight. 'Tis but a scratch. I find it cool, but they really forced this idea in. Like, they really pushed it to try to get this card in. And I understand what Wizards is trying to do, appealing to their fans and having fun with it, but this is a bit much. I think they went a little overboard on it. I do enjoy the idea of what they're going for, but yeah. The fact that it's a 4/4 that's going to have to attack every single turn, someone's going to either just remove it or they're going to chump block it repeatedly, and you're just going to lose this thing in 4 swings. It's really not that great in my opinion. Anyways, onward to Irenkrang Feet. Cool name. I don't know what that means. I'm sure there's someone out there offended by how I just pronounced that. It is a red sorcery that costs 4, adds 7 red mana. Wow. You can cast only one more spell this turn. Still, if it wasn't for the fact that it's 3 red in the cost, this card's a little bit bonkers. I don't know how it's going to do or where it's going to see play, but cool way to ramp and just drop something huge multiple turns ahead. Probably more of a commander card, though, than anything. Unless you have an ability that you can mana sink 7 mana into and it makes that big of a difference. Maybe a fire breathing effect, but it's a thing. I don't know. Next up, we have Once Upon a Time. Thank you, Wizards, for giving me something that's Once Upon a Time, so I'm sure there's a Happily Ever After somewhere else in here, just to give us that really big fairy tale story theme. So Once Upon a Time, it's a 2 mana instant. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, so it's the beginning of the story, I love that. You can cast it without paying its mana cost. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or a land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, so they gave me potentially a free ramp spell. I will run 4 of this in every constructed green deck I play in a 60-card format, just so I can turn 1 free, rip through my deck, grab another land or creature, and just guarantee I'm on curve. Yeah, I'm going to bury some stuff, but that's not bad. And at 2 mana later on the game, because it's 5 cards, still not horrible. I think this is a really solid card overall. I'd even play this in Commander. Though Commander, the odds of getting it in your opening hand are super slim. I still think this is a solid overall card. Definitely seems like green's getting a bit stronger with this set. It was a little weaker, it seemed like, the last little while, with some exceptions, obviously. But green is definitely getting some good highlights this set, and I like seeing that. Now, next up, we have Giant Killer. It is a 1 CMC creature. It is an adventure card. So it is a human peasant. Chop down is the adventure. So for 3 mana, destroy target creature of power 4 or greater. So 3 mana removal spell. Or pay 2, tap target creature. So you pay 2, tap it, tap target creature. Now it is a 1/2, so it is easily removed. I know dies to removal is one of the worst excuses for creatures, but overall, this is still a pretty solid card, and I definitely think this is going to see a fair amount of play. Also unlimited, this is a bomb, given that it is a removal and then a body that can tie up their board. I think this is actually a really solid overall card. 60-card constructed format might see some play, but definitely it's going to be really, really good in any limited format, I think. Next up, we have Mirror Maid. It is a 3 CMC. You may have Mirror Maid enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or enchantment on the battlefield. So it's another copy enchantment effect. I haven't seen copy enchantment printed in a while. And, overall, that's pretty solid. It's an enchantment itself, and it can copy an artifact or an enchantment. So it's a stronger copy enchantment, actually. I play an Enchantment Prison deck in Modern, so I definitely think this is a great card. I might run it. I might not. I don't know. 2 blue mana means I have to have a certain guaranteed mana base, but not bad overall, and I think this is a pretty solid card. Probably something worth grabbing if you play blue and enchantment or artifact-oriented strategies, just for the versatility of this card. Next up, we have Piper of the Swarm. So Pie Piper, I enjoy that idea. 2 mana for a 1/3. human warlock. Rats you control have menace. This annoys me because Rat Colony is rotating out in the next rotation, so I know why Wizards did it this way, but that still kind of irks me because I was trying to make a Rat Colony deck work at one point. And it kind of did. Kind of didn't really. For 2 mana, you can tap it. You create a 1/1 black rat creature. For 4 mana, tap it, sack 3 rats, gain control of target creature. So the fact that it has a built-in gain control effect, I really do like that. But the odds that you're going to get there, because it's going to take 3 turns of tapping it if you're not running rats somehow in your deck, and it's menace. Now, it is part of the Warlock tribe, which they are now introducing, which instead of witches, which I thought that was kind of lame to me because fairy tales have witches. It's what they have. They are not warlocks, and I thought they would have had more of a witch tribal theme, but instead they went with warlock. So I don't know why they did. I guess they wanted to try to find some gender neutral term that would mean witch to people, even though it doesn't, but that's a whole nother thing. And onward to Irencrag Pyromancer. So, Season Pyromancer just came out. More Pyromancers are coming. It's a 3 CMC, 0/4. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Irencrag Pyromancer deals 3 damage to any target. It's not bad. Now, maybe I could see this seeing play in Modern if you had like a Faithless Looting, or actually in like an Is It Prowess Stormy kind of deck with all your cantrips and stuff. All those cantrips turn into lightning bolts. So, not actually that bad. Maybe it will see some Modern play. At 3 mana, it might be a little slow, because unless you're ramping, you're dropping this on 3 in most of the decks that I just talked about. You have to hope they don't remove it by your 4th turn, and now you can kind of go off and maybe bolt them like 3 or 4 times. And it's only when you draw your second card each turn, not second or more even. So on further inspection, really not that great a card. Honestly, it's a one-time bolt every turn. Cool. They're probably going to remove it. It's a 0/4. It's a body, but for 3 mana, I think this card isn't going to see a ton of play. Commander, maybe, but Lightning Bolts and Commander aren't that great either, so I don't know. It is each turn, though, so I guess if you can somehow draw multiple cards on your opponent's turn, too, I'm suspect of this. Next up, we have Return of the Wild Speaker. So maybe this means Garruk is being cleansed of his darkness now, if you want to call it that. The corruption that the Chain Veil caused him. So it's a 5 CMC instant. I already don't like this because 5 CMC instants and I are not friends usually. Choose one. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. Okay, not bad. 5 mana could draw you a ton of cards in the right deck. Or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. No one's going to use it for that second half, most likely. Unless it's like a swing out for win. But 5 mana to do that is a lot. If you're going to do 5 mana for that, play Overrun or Overcome or whichever one it is, because it gives you +2/+2 and Trample. Just saying, Trample's a bigger deal at that point. Because here, unless you've gone wider than them, they can chump block. But drawing cards equal to the greatest power, if you're doing a big stompy creature deck, you can definitely draw a ton of cards. So, very cool. And as I said earlier, Happily Ever After. So for 3 mana, whenever Happily Ever After enters the battlefield, each player gains 5 life and draws a card. Cool. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 5 colors among permanents you control, there are 6 or more card types among permanents you control and or cards in your graveyard, and your life total is greater than or equal to your starting life total, you win the game. Cool. 3 mana enchantment that makes me jump through a lot of hoops to win the game. Though, that being said, for Commander, I could definitely see playing this. For any other format, probably not really going to see play. Fun card. I don't honestly see it being that big a deal unless you have a super hard control strategy, and that's a lot of hoops to jump through to get there. So, Happily Ever After, not my favorite card, but it could end up being a lot of fun to try to build a deck around this in Commander or another format, but I don't really play white in Commander, so Someone, if you build a deck for this, please share it below. I'm more than happy to read this list. I want to see what you do that's fun and janky for this to work. Stolen by the Fae. So it is an X and 2 blue. So X and 2 blue. Sorcery. Return target creature card with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand. You create X 1/1 fairy tokens with fly. Not bad. It's going to stall and gum up the board, which is what you might want to do in a control strategy. Gets you a bunch of tokens and bounces a threat. It has to be a creature, though. Little underwhelmed, but it could be a fun card. It's 2 mana for a bounce spell, plus you get to create a bunch of fairies. That's what the X is. So, balanced card overall. How good it's going to be, I think in Limited, probably it's going to see the most play, but overall, not going to see a ton of constructed play. And Commander, maybe. We'll see some play. Next up, we have Wishclaw Talisman. It's a 2 mana black artifact. When it enters the battlefield, it enters with 3 wish counters on it. So wish mechanics, always kind of fun. Kind of curious if it's a wish board thing, but probably not. I'm hoping they don't usually put multiple wish board mechanics in the same sets anymore. So for 1 colorless mana, tap it, remove a wish counter from Wish Talisman, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and shuffle it, and an opponent gains control of Wish Claw Talisman. Activate this ability only during your turn. That's kind of fun. If you have a way to strip the counters off of it as well after you use it, it would be funnier to me that, one-time use and then it's gone. The fact that it also bounces between is going to lead to a lot of fun in Commander, because I'm assuming you choose who it goes to, because it doesn't say at random. I wish it said at random. It would be more appropriate at that point. An opponent at random gains it. Yes, in a 2-player game, it means it just bounces back and forth, but in a multiplayer game, it now could potentially, fly around the board. So, overall, interesting card. 1 mana to search your library isn't bad, but the fact that you give it to your opponent, so unilateral effects generally don't appeal to me in the same way. So, it's an okay card. Next up, we have Opportunistic Dragon. It's a 4 CMC dragon, 4/3 flyer. When Opportunistic Dragon enters the battlefield, choose target human or artifact an opponent controls. As long as Opportunistic Dragon remains on the battlefield, gain control of that permanent. It loses all abilities, and it can't attack or block. So really, it's just a really convoluted Oblivion Ring for 4 mana for a 4/3 flyer. Meh. It's okay. It's also a very specific range it's in. I don't know how much I would play this. Probably in Limited, I could see this seeing a lot of play. Maybe Commander. Constructed, unless fields change accordingly. 4 mana for a 4/3, a little too slow for Modern. And Standard, I'd have to see how the new Standard looks to decide if this is going to be playable or not. And next up, we have Wicked Wolf. That is 4 CMC for a 3/3. When Wicked Wolf enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Sacrifice a food, put a +1 counter on Wicked Wolf. It gains indestructible to end a turn, and you tap it. So enter ability is on stack, sack food to it, it becomes a 4/4 indestructible, kill something on your opponent's side, and then it's tapped out. I'm okay with this, because I'm sure you can stack those effects the right way to make that work. And you know what? It gets bigger. In Limited, definitely going to see some play. It's effectively a removal spell in Limited. Commander, maybe. Overall, the card's mediocre at best. That's just kind of the way it is. I think it will be interesting to see if this sees any 60-card play, but you never know. We will see how that goes. Next up, we have Hushbringer. Hushbringer. I almost jumped to the next card as well. It is a 2 CMC, 1/2, flying, lifelink. Creatures enter the battlefield or dying don't cause triggers to... Wow. That's actually really strong. For 2 mana for a 1/2, creatures entering the battlefield or creatures dying don't cause abilities to trigger. So this hoses Orzhov Aristocrats or any of the ETB heavy strategies. I can definitely see this seeing more play in Modern, because if they don't have a removal spell for it, shutting down ETB effects is huge because 90% of the time, creatures' ETB effects are a big part of strategies and combos, and death triggers as well are a big part of strategies. So definitely Commander playable, definitely Modern playable. I think overall this is a pretty solid card. Yes, a removal spell will be coming straight at it, but until they remove it, you will disrupt the board. Definitely worth doing. Next up, we have Ventress Gargoyle. It's at 2 CMC 5/4. Flying, Ventress Gargoyle can't attack unless defending player has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. So, you playing a mill strategy in order to use this. Got it. 2 for a 5/4. That'll get online super quickly. Ventress Gargoyle can't block unless you have 4 or more cards in hand. So play very selectively and make sure you keep 4 cards in hand in order to block, or you're just using this to punch them in the face. Tap. Each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. So it also helps you on mill strategy. Cool. Overall, solid card. I think this will definitely see play in limited and in probably standard. If there is a mill deck, this will be in there as a win con, because having to deal with a 5/4 flyer is huge. So overall, solid card, artifact creature. So yes, it's slightly easy to deal with, but I don't see that being that big of an issue for most people. Next up, we have Witch's Revenge. It's a 3 CMC sorcery. Creatures of a creature type of your choice get -3/-3 until end of turn. So you choose a creature type when it enters, and you just destroy the board. I like that a lot. It's going to see probably play in Commander, maybe. Definitely be a good sideboard card in Standard, because if Night Tribal or anything like that ends up being a thing, it will see a ton of play. And it is scary considering if you're in like an Esper strategy with the Teferi Time Raveler floating around, you can cast this during your opponent's turn, so you can completely hose them on a swing. So they can attack in and you go no, and just blow up their board and then chump block whatever you want to kill. That's actually huge. I kind of like this card a lot. Great board wipe, 4 black, so, and it's in the 3 mana slot. I can't really say more about this card. It is pretty good to me. So Sundering Strike. Sundering Stroke. It's a 7 CMC sorcery. Deals 7 damage divided among 1, 2, or 3 targets. If at least 7 red mana was spent this way, it deals 7 damage to each of those permanents and or players. That's pretty strong. The wording is kind of awkward on it, because it doesn't really spell out the fact that it's permanents or players till the end. So it's still any target is pretty much what it's saying, but it isn't. It's weird. Not a bad card. Decent finisher. If you're getting to 7 mana, though, in a red matchup, you're probably losing. Unless unless your opponent is inept somehow. Getting to 7 mana as a red player is not something you want to be seeing. So, yeah. Overall, it's an okay card. Maybe Commander playable, but that's where that ends. Maybe limited as a finisher. Again, both of those circumstances doesn't mean the card's necessarily good. It just means it works in one of those 2 formats. Now, next up, we have Wildborn Preserver. It's a 2 CMC 2/2 Flash, Reach, Elf Archer. Whenever another non-human creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay X. When you do, put X +1/+1 counters on it. Wildborn Preserver. So, there is a huge theme towards non-human strategies in this deck, and I like that, or in this set, and I like that. For this card, it will progressively ramp and get stronger. That means I do like the fact that it's Flash and Reach, and whenever another non-human, the fact that it is pumpable is pretty strong. I think this will see some play. I just don't know what format it will see the most play in. So there you have it. That is part 2 of our Throne of Eldraine spoiler videos. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, that's all in the description box below. If you want to see what's going on in store, you can always drop in. There's one in Markham, one in Toronto. I'll talk to you next time.